before we get going, during the week things always happen that I inevitably get to use, whether one of you guys comes by and we discuss something. And this week Berea came by and we discussed the Torah and what's going on. And I want to say this before we get into it because it's the essence of this Parsha. And we have a new term that we can use in here. It's called a GPS.
Yes.
It's Guverot Positioning System. All right? And most people, when they pick up the Bible to read the Bible, they have no idea what direction they're going. They're just going to read it. You know? Some people say, okay, we're going to go north. You know? We're looking for God. But where is north? Is north going to Washington? Is north going to New York? Is north going to Canada? Where, you know, north is a relative term. And so, unless you know, okay, we're going to Canada. Well, okay, how do you get to Canada? Well, you got to go up I-35. You're going to go through Oklahoma City. You're going to go through Wichita, Kansas. You're going to go through Nebraska, Dakotas, and so on and so on. Unless somebody has been there and has the map, unless somebody has a map and can tell you the coordinates of where you're headed or where you're going, you will never get there. You may, but you don't want to go over the Rocky Mountains to do it. You don't want to go over the Rocky Mountains and then decide you've got to be over here in Toronto, which is on the other side of the Great Lakes. You know? And so, one of the reasons that Torah has been effective for you guys is because of the mapping system. And we know, once we know we're dealing with Tohu, we're in the land of Tohu, then we know what we can start looking for. We know the signpost. All right? We can start engaging the formula and understanding Torah from that perspective. Let the Peshat be the Peshat. But it's only a generic part of the map, of the mapping. The Peshat is, and they went to Canada. But we know without the Pardes part, the Remez, the Drash, and the Sod, without that, we can't navigate. We can't navigate. We're just stumbling through it. And when I do that, I just feel stuck. You know? Okay, in other words, what's the point of reading all these encampments, and what's the point of reading all these things? And throughout my life, and I've probably read through the Bible, I don't know, 30 times conservatively. Even back as a kid, you know, you started, okay, I'm going to read through. You always make it through the first 5 books of the Bible, which we know there's 7. You always make it through the first 5 books, and then you just kind of, after Joshua, you just kind of fizzle out through Judges, you know. And it's because you have no GPS, you have no direction, you have no way to go. With the rabbinic mind, that this pattern and this direction's been handed down, you have a starting part, you have a place to go, and you may go there and you may stay there a while, just like the children of Israel did in the desert. So you kind of stay there a while, and then you move on. Sometimes you go backwards, right, as they did, but before long you're trekking forward, you know. And the thing about it is, when you're heading north in this scenario, you know, you're never going to get to the top. You know, it's just there's another layer, another layer. So this is what's going on. And Moshe in this Parsha is on the border of Canada, so to speak. You know, he's taken them as far as his GPS will go. And we're gonna, as we get into it, I'm gonna explain more about this whole thing. But I just wanted to give you a brief introduction. And you know, I always talk about my Wednesday morning shower, and my Wednesday morning shower today, I had this pressing question, and I had no answer. And this pressing question, but I knew the question to ask. And once I asked the question, after digging through it with Rabbi Bax today, it opened up a whole new dimensionality that's going on that we both got to journey on. It was phenomenal, and we're going to get to go over that today. And it was kind of the cherry on the top, so to speak, because there's an enigmatic creature that we've been dealing with since Genesis, whose name is Og, who reappears again in this Parsha. And so Og is a very Gentile type of persona that we relate to in a big way. And so my question was, and then we'll get into it. My question was, why does it have to say his bed was made of iron? That was my question. Because I knew in my mind what a bed was. As coming through the Parshas with Abraham and Sarah and with Reuben defiling, I knew what Kabbalistically bed meant. I knew it was Malchut. You know, I knew it had to do with union. I knew it had to do with certain things. But I didn't, and so I started taking the Rubik's Cube apart. And what we're going to find out here is amazing as we get to the Parsha. So, but we do have a long way to go before we get to the end of this Parsha. So we want to study Torah for the sake of heaven today. For the sake of heaven was one of Og's issues. It was his main issue.
So is with the Gentiles.
Yeah, and it's what cost him his life. So, does anybody have anybody they would like to put on the prayer list?
John is. We have to really remember John. He's in hospice now.
Okay.
And he's hanging in and doing the best he can.
Okay.
We had a little boy last night at football practice get ran over on the first play. His name's Jackson.
3 years old, wasn't he?
3 years old.
A ran over by a car. Do we happen to know his last name?
I know his mom's last name, but it's not.
What's his mom's last name? That's important.
Bliss. Blice. I guess you say it Blice.
Be Cassie would be her first name. Cassie.
Cassie.
Kassi.
Okay.
And then Natalie Compton. She's still in ICU.
Okay. All right. Today we are going to dedicate our Torah study to.
We have Sam on there, don't we?
Yes, Sam Peak, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. For the sake of heaven, and we would like to elevate these people and lay them before the throne of heaven. John Culliver, Yehuda Hai Ben Matai Leah, Sam Peak, Rusty Gerhart, Greg Davis and his family, Holly Harris and her family, R.C. Upmore and her family, all the families in West affected by the blast, Russell's back, and the people of Moore, Oklahoma and Granbury, Texas, Landon Baker, David Douglas, Rosalind Bott Elise, and Bob Beats, and Jackson, the son of Casey Blice, and Natalie Compton. Blessed are you, Hashem, our God, King of the universe, and giver and creator of the Torah, and may all the Torah we learn today we remember. Ruler of the universe and master of all masters, Father of mercy and forgiveness, we thank you, our God and the God of our fathers, by bowing down and kneeling, that you brought us closer to your Torah and your holy work, and you enable us to take part take part in the secrets of your holy Torah. How worthy are we that you grant us with such a big favor? That is the reason we plead before you, that you will forgive and acquit all our sins, and that they should not bring separation between you and us. May it be your will before you, our God and the God of our fathers, that you will awaken and prepare our hearts to love and revere you, and may you listen to our utterances and open our closed hearts to the hidden studies of your Torah. May our study be pleasant before your place of honor, as an aroma of sweet incense, and may you emanate to us light from the source of all of our soul and to all of our being. And may the sparks of your holy servants, through which you revealed your wisdom to the world, shine. May their merit and the merit of their fathers and the merit of their Torah and holiness support us, so we shall not stumble through our study. And by their merit enlighten our eyes in learning, as stated by King David, the sweet singer of Israel. Open my eyes so that I will see wonders from your Torah, because from his mouth God gives wisdom and understanding. May the utterances of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor before you, God, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Everybody read Devarim, the first of Deuteronomy. As we've spoken in the past, this is actually what's called the 5th book, but we know it's the 7th book of the Torah. And the 7th is always going to be Malchut. All right? Malchut is what is called the mouth. It's also associated with the feet. All right? And we know it's also the Teret HaYesod, but it's also can be said as the mouthpiece. Right? So this is, from up until this point in Torah, everything, and God spoke to Moses saying. But now, these are the words that Moses spoke to Israel. This is the repetition, or the review, in other words. All right? So, let's read the opening thing here, and then I'm going to, when you say a Mishnah is like a repeating or a review. All right? This is called Mishnah Torah. Devarim, Deuteronomy. Its terms Mishnah. So it means an explanation or second Torah. So the first 6 books, or what we would consider 4 books, remember the inverted nun in Numbers? Is the middle portion, but now we're at Devarim. It's the end portion. It's considered the second Torah because this is Moses speaking. All right, and of course, if you're a Bible scholar, you will know that the laws in here differ somewhat from the laws that God spoke. Does anybody have any inclination why that might be? Why it changed?
Situations change.
Times change.
How about elevations change?
Yeah, elevations was changed. Yeah.
Okay, when you're in Malchut, when you're in Asiya, they're going to permeate in a different form from the way they are in Atzilut. Everything is a different form of Atzilut than Atzilut.
But you're saying this was given in Atzilut, but it was carried out in Malchut.
See,
so there's a big difference.
There's a huge difference in how it's going to be on paper. All right. Although they are in Asiya, but they are dealing with every level simultaneously. All right. But the main thing they're dealing with is the backside level. Right? They're dealing with Tohu. We know that. They were sent on mission impossible. All right? And this is what Moses is telling them. All right? Deutero means 2 in Latin. So they took the Deuteronomy, which means 2, but they don't know why it means 2, because they're getting it from the second Torah. Higher, lower. Hashem's, Moshe's. Follow me?
Right.
That's why it's called Deuteronomy. It's two. It's the second. So, just some little and the Jews, they use the names. In other words, Leviticus was not called Leviticus; it was called Torah Kohanim, because it was the Torah of the Levites.
So are you saying that the Deuteronomy is the Malchut Torah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's it in a nutshell. As Moses speaks, Ramban points out that there are over 100 laws that are contained in this book. 70 of them are new aspects. And of course, we don't have to get into the Kabbalistic meaning of that, but everybody that ought to ding a bell. All right? And there is in Psalms, it says she built her house on 7. And this is regarding the Torah, where there are 7 books of the Torah, not 5, which Chumash means 5, but it's not. It's, of course, we know it's 7, right? From our studying here. So, as I said, Moses is the mouth, and the mouth is situated here on your head. So, you have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, and 1 mouth. It's a spherotic Partsufim.
So it's Zah of the head.
Yeah. Right? So your face is built like a Partsufim. And so what does Moses do? He's building the Partsufim of Malchut. Why? Because it has no light of its own. So he spoke to the children of Israel, saying, right? It's because it has to come from Zah, from that portion. All right. So let's see what he's doing here. And if you're any kind of Kabbalist at all, you will pick it out real quick here. These are the words that Moses spoke to all of Israel on the other side of the Jordan. It says it right there. Mm-hmm. They're on the other side.
Yeah.
Okay? Concerning the wilderness, concerning Arabah, opposite the Sea of Reeds, between Paran and Tophel and Laban and Hazroth and Dizahab. 11 days from Horeb, by the way of Mount Zair to Kadesh Barnea. It was the 40th year in the 11th month, on the first month, when Moses spoke to the children of Israel. Now, encoded in that is, we could study on it literally a year, okay? But we don't have a year, so we are going to cover what we can. Now, there's a problem that the sages point out. Tophel and Laban are not in the Torah. They're not places at all. You cannot find them anywhere. All right. So we have an issue here, and so we're going to see what Moshe is doing. He is giving his last will and testament in this parsha. All right. But he is going to chastise the children of Israel for their sin without naming names and speaking Lashon Hora. But at the same time, who else is he chastising?
Laban.
No. He's chastising God himself.
I was thinking maybe Sam, but I didn't.
He's chastising God himself. Because what's he saying? There is no way in these places that they could have kept from sinning. If you throw me in a mud puddle, I'm going to come up dirty.
Right.
It's impossible. All right?
It's hard enough for one person to stay
Yeah, yeah.
free.
So he's got a twofold statement here that he's doing. But he has to, because he's got to finish cleaning up the other side and burning it out, because in about 5 weeks he's going to die. And there can't be any contamination where he is. Right? So, as we said previously, Malchut has nothing of its own. It is a revealed. It's not a concealed. So that's why you repeat. You reveal it a little bit more. It's the area of reveal. Upper level is concealed, lower is revealed, right? It's not about the content of the material, it's about the context of the material. So this material is being channeled through. Devarim is a channel through, and Moses is the channel for this. The first verse iterates the pattern of these seven places. 7 is obviously Malchut, so he is making union with his words to the Nukva, to the children of Israel. Moses spoke, children of Israel. He's making a zivug. He's making a union with the children of Israel. The Malchut to the Nukva. In the Talmud, Rabbi Yochanan said, the last will and testament, he rebukes the people with the acts of rebellion, and he lists the places of sin. And he says, I have reviewed the scripture, and you cannot find Tophel or Levan. They're codes of sin. They're code places of sin. That's the secret. And why would he say he has reviewed the Bible and cannot find? Why would he say that? What is Devarim? It's a repetition. It's a review. See how he said what he said was the answer. I've reviewed it and I cannot find it anywhere. Of course, he reviewed it because it's Devarim, and it's right there in Devarim. All right, so we're going to learn what it is. The wilderness. If you'll look, the wilderness is number 1. First place. This is the wilderness of sin. This is where they complained about starving. Instead of saying, and you complained about starving, he called it the wilderness. All right? Araba. This is, the wilderness is Hesed. Araba is the Guvarot. Sea of Reeds is Tiferet, because it says opposite the Sea of Reeds. See, he lists the two. What is opposite Tiferet? The wilderness and Araba. See, it's giving you the GPS. And then it says between Paran and Tophel and Laban. Sea of Reeds is 3. Paran is 4. Tophel and Laban together are 5. They're not 5 and 6 because it's between Paran and between Laban. They're both connected to Paran. What are they? What's 2 halves of one thing? Netzach and Hod. Haroth is Yesod. And the last one, Dizahab, is Malchut. And then it says, immediately, 11 days. from Horeb? Well, we know we have 7, because he just described the 7 places, and I've got it written down here, kind of what the sins were. One was the golden calf, one's here, one there, all the different things that happened in those spots. All right. The last one there, da zahab, da from El Shaddai, enough. That's the whole into Yesod. That's the whole golden calf thing. All right. So, but it says 11 days from Horeb. Why 11 days? We know 11 has to deal with Noga, right? There's 11 coverings, there's 11 nis, there's 11 nat, there's 11 spices. We know we've gone over all the things of 11. But what we don't know is during the fall, the backside of Chokhmah and Bina, some of it fell out. The backside of Israel Saba and Tavuna, remember Ema is broken up into Ema and Tavuna, and remember Chokhmah is broken up into Abba and Israel Saba. Remember that from our Histat Shalut, which is 4. So there's an aspect of each of those spherotic structures that got caught in the backside, which is the intellect of it. All right. What we're going to find is the Mashiach is going to fix the intellect. Moses had to reconstruct the body. All right, because Moses is rooted in the Malchut of Bina, in the Leah aspect, because Leah is a Levite, right? He's the head Levite, so that's his patriarch mother. So he's rooted there. So he can't GPS any higher than that. So, but the Torah goes on to say, but it's an 11-day journey. The 11 days, remember, a day is a sphirot. 6 days, on the 7th day is the Shabbat. Those are the lower 7, right? At the end of days, remember we studied that? At the end of the spherotic structure, a day is a sphirot, and they give us 11 days.
They're talking about Ketcher.
They're talking about, yeah, well they're talking about these 2-part Suphims up here that equal 4.
Okay.
So we have 7 plus 4, the 2-part Suphims of the Chokhmah Bina. That's the 11 days.
Okay, so they're okay.
All right, so they are really working on a serious global map here of big proportion. All right. And then, of course, 40, we know the whole mem, the whole final mem, and the 40 and all that. But it's in the 11th month, and the 11th month, first of the month. So it's very critical what Moses is doing here. He is laying out the whole thing to him. And he's telling God, look, we've been on the backside of this whole thing, and you sent us to these places of Hesed, Guvarot, Teferet, Malchut, Yesod, Netzach, and Hod, and you sent us to all these places that were so stinking contaminated. There was nothing there was hardly anything we could do about it, and it caused shattering of the vessels, so to speak, But we did our best, and we did tikkun, and when we messed up, we fixed it, and now we're at the edge of 11, which is Noga. We're at that aspect where everything is in the redeemable space, because that's 11, right? Because we know 11's Noga. So he's talking about, all right, we did all that you said we had to do. We fought all the bad klippas. We conquered all the bad klippas, and this is the coordinates of the Sitra Atra, the other side. And now we're at the top of it, And they're going to go on, but because I'm not rooted higher than that, because I can't go higher than that, because my soul root's not higher than that, I can't, Moses knew he couldn't go. So he had to make sure he burned out everything that God, we completed it, because he is going to be outside the land. And Ammon and Moab and all these different places. All right? And there's a reason he's going to be out there. We're going to find in this Parsha coming up that is going to be crucial for Messiah. All right? And so, and those are the other Middle Eastern countries right now that are trying to kill Israel. But there's a very good reason. All right? Let me turn my paper here. In the area of Tophel, this is where they spoke about the manna. The manna is Levan. It's the white. Manna was white. This is the Levan portion. So when they spoke about the manna, that whole thing is tied in, because we know that the two Bilam's son, they were trying to resurrect who? None other than Levan. So it's not a place. It's a spiritual entity. It's a spiritual government over these spots. Right? Eunice and what's his name? Yamris and Eunice. Something like that. Right? And Paran was the spies. And Hazroth is Korach's rebellion. So, this is what's called, I believe it's called gonography. In other words, encrypted right here in front of your face, in plain sight. It's encrypted, it's coded in plain sight, right here in front of everybody. And so, if you're a Bible scholar, you go, oh, this is not inspired by God, because there is no such place as Tophel, and there is no such place as Levan. Right? Unless you know the code. Then you know exactly it's the backside of a spherotic structure that's caught in the tohu. It's a coordinate on the Guvarot positioning system. Each of the name is a location of a name of the map of the Sitra Atra. The Da, that last one there, Da Zahab. This is from El Shaddai. And the gematria of El Shaddai is 345. The gematria of Moshe is 345. Okay? We're going to learn why that is so important when he says, and God has blessed you 1,000, in a minute. Because if you spell out the name that they basically call Shaddai or Moses, it equals 1,000. And we're going to see what is going on there. This and why does he say that? Because enough and too much mean the same. You've had enough food. You've had enough to drink. It means too much. Yeah. So what's he telling God here? He said, you gave them too much gold. Yeah. You had too much. You know, if you have too much money, you know, and maybe if I win the $425 million lottery tonight, we could test the principle a little bit. But the fact of the matter is, if you have too much, a lot of times it's not good. Too much of anything is not good. So Moses is saying, God, you're the one that gave them the gold and you gave them too much. And look what they did with it. You know? Why? Because gold is guvrot. It was unmitigated. He was saying, look, we're going to a place that's unmitigated guvrot and you're giving them gold? You know? Somebody, you know, it's like giving a guy a gun and telling him to go rob a bank. Somebody's going to get shot. So so Moses is using this chastising of the people and of Hashem very delicately with stating the places and using these names. Moses' chastisement to God was that the forces were too strong. Of course they would fall. And so he's saying, you have to take full responsibility for them now, not me. They're your responsibility, God. You're the one that brought them out. You're the one that said, go get them. You're the one that gave them the gold. It's your responsibility. And he's absolutely right. A chastise can also be used as the term zivug. So in his chastisement, that's where they get the word chastity belt, to keep from zivug. Union. He's making union with God, and he's making union with the children of Israel with one statement. It's applicable to both. So not only is he making union, he's making them have union. Moses is way up there on the intelligence scale. He gave them the map of the primordial serpent, the 7 sphirot of the backside. He's revealing that the place is a setup. In the first word, if you read the first verse here, remember we talk about this and these, and how does he start it? These. And the term words here also in Hebrew can mean things. And as it should be said, these are the things. That it can be used either way. These are the words Moses spoke, and these are the things Moses spoke. Because he's showing them things, which are his words. Okay? The Ramchal says, Moses is going to the root of the Sitra Achra. He's going into the Klippa through his chastisement, and this is what's going to mitigate the whole thing. Moses here is representing Yesod Abba, and his words in the Torah he's repeating is representing Yesod of Zah. He's going to die 5 weeks from now in Moab. So he has to remove the Klippa from where he will be buried. So nothing can attach itself to Yesod. Because it has no Yesod of its own. Right? So that's where it wants to get his life. He did this so it could not attach to the garment of the Yesod of Zeranpin. He is protecting God in his chastisement. Because once he can make union with the children of Israel and with the Holy One, they're in union. There can be nothing else in union. He garmented it. That's a hard thing to say. Garmented it. All right? Now, the Rabbi Ramdu, I'm going to be Rabbi Rambo. Rabbi Ramdu discusses the 11 days. The 7 days that he discussed are the 7 kings of where?
7 kings of Edom.
Edom! If you will look here, it says, by the way of Mount Zair. Does anybody know what Zair means? Edom. Mount Guvarot, Edom. A mountain is Guvarot. A mountain is Guvarot. Zair is Edom. The other 4, as we discussed, the backside of Abba Ema, Israel, Sab, and Tavuna, fell and were affected by the fall. This is Mount Zair, or Edom. And these are the 7 kings of Edom. This is the tikkun on the fall of the 7 kings. And it says, these are the dark matters that Moses spoke of.
This is the backside.
Yes. Yes. All right. I am. We are going to go through some apples. Not right now. We are going to go through some apples, and turn your pages here on page 941 in your Chumash. I want you to look at something here, because Moses is speaking, saying our God said He's going to give us this land. He does go on to talk about killing Sihon, king of the Amorites, and Og, king of Bashan.
Yes. There he is.
And then it says on 5, on the other side of the Jordan in the land of Moab, Moses began to explain this Torah, not that Torah, but you see what I'm saying? This Torah, Torah number 2 here. Hashem our God spoke to us in Horeb, saying, enough. There it is. Right?
Yeah.
All right, and then he goes on down and he says, I'm giving you all this, but look here at the very end. It says, until the great river, the Euphrates. Well, being our resident Israeli, does the border of the West Bank go to the Euphrates River?
I think
That's
so.
in Iraq.
Yeah.
No, it does
I
not.
don't have to look at the picture.
It does. It does not.
Yeah.
I've been there.
That's a whole nother war
But
right
he
there.
plainly says right here that your border is going to be all the way to the Euphrates River.
Right.
Says, and look what right over says in verse 8 there. See, exclamation point. I have given the land before you. Come possess the land. And I give it to their children after them. Well, I don't know how many people's into prophecy, but we know that there's 3 kings He will not let them go kill. There's 3 kings that will still be around. They are Moab, Ammon, so on and so on and so on. And these are the kings that control the land all the way to the Euphrates River. When Messiah comes, He is going to take care of the last 3 kings. We're going to call this the little bitty war of Gog and Magog.
The little dog and Magog?
Yeah, no. I'm just making it.
Oh, well, that's the part you're making up.
A hysterically funny example here, because their land goes all the way to the Euphrates. And so when that happens, Israel's borders will be, just like Moshe said, all the way to the Euphrates River. It's right here. All right? And we're going to go on that a little bit more. Now, and I'm gonna just briefly cover some of this, but I want you to see it before we get into it. Look on the next page, 943. So I took the heads of your tribe. Oh, this just stood out to me like a red light. Verse 12, chapter 1. How can I alone carry your contentiousness, your burdens, and your quarrels? Provide for yourselves distinguished men who are wise, wisdom, understanding, and well known to your tribes. And you shall appoint them heads over everybody. He didn't just pick random people. He picked people that are rooted Chokmah Bina Da'at. You know, it wasn't the most popular dude in town or the best politician. These guys were Chokmah Bina Da'at. All right? And then he goes on to say, so I took the heads of your tribe, distinguished men who were wise, well known, and I appointed them over heads of the leaders. 1,000 leaders. Leaders of this, leaders of that. See, he couldn't say any higher than that because he's rooted in 1,000. He couldn't say 10,000. All right? But then he goes on to say that God has blessed you 1,000-fold, basically, right? In his blessing. Well, that's not what God said. That's what Moses said. God said what? I will make you. What did he tell Abraham?
I'll make you a great nation.
As many
There's
as
seeds of the sand.
Sand.
sand in the seashore
Right, right.
and stars in the sky. But Moses said, God has increased you 1,000. All right? Well, here's the lesson. Moses is rooted in Mount Rubina. He can't. He has taken them as far as he can take them. He wasn't talking about their population. He wasn't talking about the amount of souls that they've made. He's talking about their knowledge. He's talking about their Torah. I have taken you to where I'm at. The Torah, the rabbinic Torah principle is here. You can only gain as much Torah from a teacher that teacher is rooted in and no more.
Exactly.
So wherever I am rooted in, I can't teach you or take you anywhere past that. You have to get a teacher that is rooted higher than me. And so on and so on and so on. All right? And so without rabbinic source, without being connected to that, you can't. If you weren't connected to Moses, you couldn't have gotten 1,000-fold. You couldn't have been increased 1,000-fold. All right. So one of the reasons this Torah class has gone with the Torah that it has is because I'm connected to somebody that's connected to somebody. You see what I'm saying? So we're not limited. If it was just me teaching, we could only go as far as I am, no further. All right. So this is the Torah principle that Moses is telling them. All right, because God told him, "I'm gonna make you as many as the sand." All right, because it's infinite, you know. And Moses says, "And God has blessed you 1,000." You know. So there's a huge principle there. Okay, chapter 2. We get in all of a sudden in his whole monologue here. We talk about Esau and Seir. If you notice, he starts out here and we encircle the mountain of Seir and the children of Esau right there. Okay, so we know those, and then he goes to Moab, and then he starts talking in verse 11 there about the Rephaim, the giants. All right, so we're gonna have to go back and cover the giants. All right, because we got to get a handle on what a giant is. Because if you read anything about the Nephilim or about the giants, you know, there's stories, and a rabbi was chasing a fox and a rabbit in a hole, and he went in the hole, and he said it was the leg bone of Og. All right? Well, is it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you're just reading that and you don't know what's going on, you're going to think, well, either he's smoking crack, or there's a leg bone somewhere in Israel that you can drive a Volkswagen through. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So when we leave here today, all that will be cleared up. And then I want you to look at a verse in chapter 2, verse 20. Talks about the land of the Rephaim. And then there's a funny word here at the end. And Hashem destroyed, then the Amorites called them Zamzummim. What does that sound like to y'all?
It sounds like giggering.
Well, what? Yes. All right. So we see we have something going on here. Okay.
Oh,
Zamzum.
yeah, I get it.
Zamzummim. All right. Now, all right. So, chapter 3, we see that Og had 60 cities. Okay? And then it says, for only king of Bashan was left of the remaining giants, Rephaim, behold. There's a line there, and it says, behold. We know in Torah, whenever we see that,
Yeah.
something's happening. His bed was of iron. His bed was an iron bed. Why in the world did they have to tell us how big his bed was? Who cares how big his bed was? But evidently, it's important.
What verse is that?
It's 11,
11.
3:11.
Yeah.
And then it says, 9 cubits is its length, 4 cubits is its width, by the cubit of that man.
And you also have to remember, Israeli people back then were small.
All right?
But that's what
Let the Peshat be the Peshat. But we've got to figure out why we're going to discuss how big the dude's bed was. Why we're going to discuss how tall he was. Why we want to say he was half as wide as he was tall. And why we're only measuring by him. We're only using that man's measurements.
And this in here has an exclamation point.
Yes.
That's standard cubits.
Yes, yes. There's something going on here. All right? Y'all ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I need my bottom blue book here. My bottom pink book. It is a blue book with pink cover. I wasn't too far off. Okay. So, anybody need this? Now, I'm gonna read you some stuff here. We're gonna go here, and then we're gonna go here, and then we're gonna bring it all back around and figure it out. All right. Now, we're gonna revisit Og here because he is the pivotal character of this parsha, other than Moses' reaccountment of everything. All right. Now we know from our past parshas, Og was on Noah's Ark. We know Og was
He was
Eleazar's servant. We know Og was the one that told told Abraham that Lot was captured. We know Og was with Pharaoh when the children of Israel coming. We know that Og was down there when Jacob came to Israel. All right. So we know, and now Og fought Moses. So we know this Og guy lived a long time and was a very big man. All right. So let's figure out what's going on with Og. Now, Sihon and Og were brothers. All right. They were sons of one of the angels descended during the generation of Noash. All right, the fallen Nephilim. Right? Before the flood. He was the fugitive that came and told Abraham. Og was the one who escaped the flood. He sat on the nose of the boat, and Noah fed him through a hole. Oh, it's all Kabbalistic. So he sat down on the plank on the top of the ark and swore to Noah and his sons that he would be there, slave forever, if he'd let them stay. Noah boarded the aperture in the ark through which he put aperture in the ark through which he put out Og's food daily. So Noah kept him alive. We're going to see. Og was Abraham's servant Eleazar. His feet were 4 parsongs long. Why does the Torah want to tell us that? How big his feet were. Yet Abraham kept him in the palm of his hand. Alright? You're fixing it. This is amazing. Kept him in the palm of his hand. Abraham once rebuked him. And Og was so frightened that his tooth fell out. Abraham made it into a bed in which he slept. Some say he made it into a chair. Some say his wife sat in it at all times. Who had given Og to Abraham? Nimrod. Now, to decode the Kabbalistic language in here, what is a tooth associated with in Kabbalah? wisdom, Chokhmah. Okay? That's where you get the term wisdom teeth. So, when Abraham rebuked him, his wisdom fell out. Get it? Abraham made it into a bed, his wisdom. In other words, he resided in wisdom, in which he slept. Some say he made it into a chair, which his wife sat in all of her days. You see how now that you know a tooth is wisdom, it changes everything up?
It's like a fairy tale. I'm thinking about the books and the fairy tales that
Yes.
were allegorical and
Yes.
know what they meant.
All right? Now, he was a fugitive.
Just wrote it down.
A fugitive is called Palit. His name was Palit. Then why was he called Og? Because he came without Abraham occupied with unleavened cakes. So what is Og? He's the leaven in the deal. We're going to find that out. All right? Told Abraham that Lot had been captured. The Holy One, blessed be He, told him, "You will be rewarded all the steps of your life with extremely long life." That's why he was old. None mightier than he ever arose. We will learn that why. Where was he rooted? Where's tooth? Chokhmah? Oh, no mightier than he ever arose. But he was the Guva road of Chokhmah on the backside. See, nobody could ever rise higher than that. That's why he lived the longest. That's why he was the biggest. You see where we're going. But Og was the least of all the Rephaim of the race of giants who lived at the time. He was an ugly person, for his body was out of proportion. His height was 9 cubits, his width was 4. It's almost half his height.
13.5 feet by 6 feet.
Well, I don't know what y'all are trying to say.
Well, here's what
I'm as wide as I am. I'm half as wide as I am, Paul.
here's what we're saying. Here's what we're saying. His bed was made of iron. Right? Gold, silver, copper, iron.
Iron is malchut or yesod?
Yeah, malchut.
Okay.
His bed was made of iron. He operated in malchut. His dimensions were 9 by 4. If you take Ben is 52. Ben is 52. And it's Adonai. And you spell the Yud Hey Vav Hey out with the 52. Guess how many letters are in it? On the back side, 9. Yud Hey Vav Hey, 4. He was 9 by 4. Has nothing to do with height, and width. Let the Peshat be the Peshat. He is the backside Malchut of the Adonai. Of the Alad Daled Nun Yud.
Okay.
The 9.
Well, I'm gonna have a lot of fun with Miriam on that one.
And the Yud Hey Vav Hey of what it is. It's the Havayah, the 4. His bed was iron. He gave us this is the GPS, guys. He gave us the location. He gave us the coordinate, the name, the length, the width. Moses is telling us exactly the GPS of this dude. The coordinate of the Tohu. Follow it?
I mean, that's pretty low, though. I mean, the backside of Malchut.
But rooted in hope.
I got you. Okay.
All right? Now, now that we have our Kabbalistic helmet on, Let's go on. He built 60 cities, of which the smallest was 6 miles high. See the GPS map? He's working in Yesod, guys. 10 times 6, 60. His consumption of food was 1,000 ox. 1,000 rooted up here. Guvarot's ox. In other words, he was the most extreme Guvarot. That was his energy. That was his food. See, even when they tell you the story, they're not telling you the story. All right? His drinking was 1,000 measures. Of course it was. Abba Shaul said, once I was running after, here's the story. Once I was running after a deer and entered a hollow thigh bone of a corpse, and I ran after the deer 3 parsons within the bone. They said that bone belonged to Og, king of Bashan. From our Parsha last week, that I kind of got red-faced because I thought of you. Remember?
Yeah.
And we used the term deer, 4-legged deer.
Mm-hmm.
What does deer represent? From last week's Parsha. Remember? Jerusalem, Israel. He was running after it. And he had to go through none other than his prophecy, the thigh bone.
The thigh bone of Og.
Of Og. He's going through the backside, chasing after Jerusalem. You see how they're saying it right in front of your face, but unless you have the GPS, you're lost. Even though you're reading it.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, he had a son who was even stronger than him. Sihon and Og were haughty and mighty. Only a day's journey separated them, yet neither of them came to each other's aid. That's self-explanatory. Even on the Peshat, but we get the map. Mm-hmm. Use the map. Mm-hmm. All of the people in Abram's house were circumcised. This refers to Og. Why? He's rooted in Hokmah, where he's dealing with 6-7 too. Og is dealing with 6-7. What is 6-7? Yesod. What is Abraham doing? He's circumcising Yesod of Hokmah. Right? Mm-hmm. His root. Well, guess what? Og's a part of that root. That's why he was his servant. You see how it's all, the maps all comes back together? Sihon is the foreskin. Og, that's the Mila. Then the micromembrane that's over it is the Priya. It's the thing that's most difficult to remove. So we see Og sometimes as a good guy, sometimes as a bad guy. Because he's just got a small noga covering. He can penetrate into good. But he's also the Priya, he's still into bad. So he's oscillating. Now the story's all coming together. You see? And his brother and him, they're these two, there's these two oscillating factors of circumcision. That's why it was so easy to kill Sihon. He's the foreskin part, just cut it off. But the other part's difficult. Right?
Yes, Lord.
All right? Og said, Abraham is a zealot. Now, I will tell him that his nephew has been captured, and he will wage war and free him, and will be slain in battle. And I will take his wife Sarah. That was his mistake. Because he didn't do it for the sake of heaven. Mm-hmm. He did it for his own sake. He did the right thing for the wrong reason. Right? The Holy One said, because you thought to kill the righteous Abraham, your life, you will see myriads and myriads of descendants. But you will be wiped out. because he did not do it for the sake of heaven, but for the sake of Sarah's beauty. When Abraham's servant Eleazar did act in kindness for Isaac, Abraham freed him. The Holy One, blessed be He, then gave Eleazar his reward in this world, so that he would have no reward in the world to come. He made him king of Bashan. When Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, he made a feast to which he invited all the kings of Canaan. Og too was present on that occasion. There's a whole thing cosmically going on here, guys. He's inviting him to a circumcision. I mean, you know, the Priya, of course, he's got to have the Priya there. He's got to have Mila there and the Priya. Because he's got to do it right on Isaac. See what's going on? It's an aspect. It doesn't have to be him. It's the aspect he represents. Okay? Did you not say Abraham and so then they said to Og, did you not say Abraham is a sterile mule who will not beget offspring? Upon seeing Isaac, Og said, that is nothing. With my finger I can kill him. The Holy One, blessed be He, said, is that how you speak? You will see thousands of midrids issuing from him, and you will fall by their hands. When Jacob came before Pharaoh to bless him, Og was present. Pharaoh said to Og, do you not say Abraham is a sterile mule, will not beget offspring? Yet here his grandson is with 70 descendants. Og began to cast an evil eye upon them. Said the Holy One, blessed be He, may the evil of that wicked one melt away. Og said to Pharaoh, that is Abraham himself. That's not it. But because they looked identical. Then Pharaoh asked Jacob in Bereshit 47-8, how many years have you lived? That's why he asked him that. Remember that? From the Parsha? Now, fast forward to Moses. Sihon and Og were stronger than Pharaoh and all of his armies. What are we talking about? These are the extreme Guvarot. Right? They're brothers. They're the Netzach and Hod, right? Which is the Yesod of the Guvarot of Guvarot. But his bed was iron, the lowest metal. This is where heavy metal originated. Right? So, Israel should have sung a song at the downfall of Sihon and Og. But it was David who sang the song in Psalms 136, 17 through 20, when he says, Sihon, king of the Amorites, and Og, king of Bashan, it says, he who smote the great kings. Why did David say it, not them? David is
Mashiach.
and he's also,
Malchut.
and there it is. The coordinate has to fit the coordinate. Okay? Fear him not, God told Moses. God told Moses. Because Moses was afraid of Og, but not Sihon. For our obvious reasons that we now understand. Perhaps the merit of Abraham will protect Og. What's the merit of Abraham? Circumcision. Right?
The covenant.
Because he informed of him of Lot's capture, and Moses knew this, and he also knew he was circumcised. Moses says, I'm 120 years old. He's over 500 years old. Right? If he had no merit, he would have not have lived so long. This is what Moses is telling Hashem. Upon seeing Israel approach, Og said, surely the merit of my circumcision will supersede their merit. At that moment, Moses was gripped with fear. How could he destroy the sign of the covenant that Abraham had imprinted on him? This was done by the original guy. The Holy One, blessed be He, told him, fear not. Do not fear his sign, for he has blemished it. Whoever blemishes his sign deserves to be destroyed.
How did it move?
Well, he was in the Guvarot. I'm sure he was Guvaroting with Guvarots over there,
I can
Not-
give you a little Judaic history on that. Depending on who they were hanging around with, they had fake skin they would put on when they're with other men. Fake foreskin.
Oh. Maybe he used that.
That was very popular back then.
That was the in style thing.
We had
So
to,
They
Moses
didn't want to be separated.
Yeah.
Moses and Israel came to the border of Adria. He said, "Let us camp here." And Moses said, "We will enter in the morning." Why in the morning? Because morning is the time of Esed home, When they were about to enter Adria, there was still not enough light to see clearly. Moses raised his eyes, so they're letting you know Moses can't see. But Moses raised his eyes. All right? He's not looking out. He's looking up, right? He saw Og sitting on the wall with his feet reaching the ground. "I do not know what I am seeing," said Moses. "Have they built another wall overnight?" "What do you see?" said the Holy One, blessed be He. "It's Og. Og uprooted a mountain and hurled it at Israel. Moses took a pebble, pronounced the ineffable name over it, and it stemmed the mountain's fall." Remember, a mountain is Malchut. They're all. It's a war. It's a war of the Malchuts, because all the Malchuts are overlapping, as we've learned in your class, right?
Yeah, we learned that.
And so everything is going on from every level, all right? Because the light overlaps, it extends all the way down. So his feet reached all the way down to the ground. Does everybody see what's going on? Right? Og said, "The camp of Israel occupies the space of 3 parsons." See, he's even talking dimensionality. "I will uproot a mountain 3 parsons, and I will throw it on them and kill them." He went and uprooted such a mountain and brought it over his head in preparation for throwing it at Israel. The Holy One, blessed be He, sent worms, and it bored a hole in the mountain and descended on his neck. He sought to remove it, but his teeth grew on both sides and it became caught. He got caught in his own wisdom. His plot, his plan to invert Malchut, he got stuck in it. Now, this is the best part. Moses was 10 cubits tall. Moses is 10 cubits tall. He took a stick 10 cubits long. He jumped 10 cubits high. He struck him on the ankle and killed him. Now,
He killed Og, you're talking about.
Og, yeah. Now, can anybody with all the tools I've given you break that down on what just happened? Og was, all right, because there's stories in the Torah that Moses was 15 foot tall, right? But see, when they measured Og, they had to use that man's, as we discussed in the Parsha, that man's measurements.
From here to here.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it's this is what it is on the Peshat. But what it is on the Sod is the length of the name. All the other lengths of the name are tens, in the tens, but on the back side you're 9. So it's saying, all right, Moses on the front side is 10.
Okay.
He's 10. He's the complete Havayah. He's bigger than the Adonai. He's there on Pim. And it took a stick. What's a stick? The Vav. See? The Vav is 10. He's elevating himself so much higher. But we know Og is rooted up here in Hokmah. So what's hanging out his feet? Malchut. So what does he do? He hits him on the feet. He hits him in a Asiya. That's like hitting him right between the eyes. He destroys the Malchut, which was Og. He could have hit him in the head. Doesn't matter. You see, it's code. They had to use feet to explain the coordinate of where Og is. Follow me? Okay. So anyway, that now when we go back through, why does it say he had a bed of iron? Because a normal king's bed is gold or silver. But this evil one is rooted in harsh Guvarot. He's the harshest Guvarot of the other side.
Backside Guvarot.
Yes. Even his bed was of iron, which is the hardest metal of all. The most harsh Guvarot. What do they build our buildings of in the world of Asiya that we live in?
Iron.
Iron. Do you see how our world is that world? The Og world? Our bed is a bed of iron. There are 4 metals: gold, silver, copper, and iron. These are the 4 dimensions: Atzilut, Bariah, and Asiya, and Yetzirah. Right? Now, gold is Atzilut, silver is Bariah, copper is Yetzirah, and iron is Asiya. But there's a problem. Silver is always higher on the right. It's always silver than gold.
Right.
But gold is more precious than silver. Even we know that.
It's just because it's
Because
more
when it's
abundant.
because if it's only when it's mitigated is it higher. When it is unmitigated, silver. So when they used the copper serpent, where do you think they were? It gives you the coordinate with what metal they use. Follow me.
Yep. Yep.
Okay? See how it's working? Now, so that's why they picked gold to build the golden calf with, because that's where they were working at. They were on a very high level. You know? So so we're learning more and more and more of the language of Torah. It's the GPS, the Guvarot positioning system. Okay? Iron is the lowest roots of the backside. It is the thing that's holding on to Yetzirah. He was basically holding on to Yetzirah as hard as he could. All right? And I've already gone through the name of Ben, as it's iterated out as 9 letters. All the others are 10. What does Guvarot do? It causes expansion. It in and of itself is contraction, but it is the female that causes the expansion. Right? If there wasn't any women, there wouldn't be a whole lot of expansion. All right?
Yeah.
All right? The 4 letters is the width, that's the Havayah. By the cubit of that man, this is what's called an Og measurement. An Og Eman.
An augment.
Yeah. Eman. Eman is a cubit. So they actually call it an Og cubit. That's why it's listed there. All right? So nothing else is ever measured with that deal unless you're stretched out on the backside. Og size had to be more than the cubits that's actually listed on a cubit if you're using the Peshat cubit listing. All right, because it wouldn't make sense, right? This is the secret of the feminine. Since Ben is hay, Ben's a hay, Sog's a hay. This is a secret of the feminine. Because remember the 2 lights of Sog and Ben? coming down. That's those two lights called the shattering of the vessels. That's what got caught on the backside. This is Og. He's the hay of the bin of the whole thing. See? So Moses is fixing a serious part here. All right? And so this is the elongation of the hay in this. That's why it's spelled out Yud Vav Hey Hey Hey. You know how they spell the hay with all the hays in it. It is the feminine that takes the power from the male, from the masculine. It's clinging on to Kedusha and Asiya. All right. If you look in the Torah portion. In verse 1, you can see verse 2. So he talks about the 11 days from Horeb,
First chapter.
for chapter 1, by the way of Mount Seir, Edom, to Kadesh, Kedusha. It's holding on. See how all that is connected. We're going all through that because it's connected to the Kedusha. All right? Moses is sitting here in 3 verses, and of course, in most of this parsha is talking about the eradication of the kings that were in these. That were not only at these places of sin they had to deal with, but then they had to take care of the higher level forces that were running this whole country.
He's taking care of everything.
He's taking care of everything. Everything. So. I thought it was a odd finding that 9 and 4 is 13.
Well, here's an interesting thing. Babylonian, the longest cubit was 24 inches. The average was 18. That's the tallest cubit they have measured. Is 24 inches per cubit.
Let's see. We got a few minutes here. I'll make
That's
sure I
pretty
cover
long.
everything here. So, in a review, these 11 days are the 7 kings of Edom, plus the Mohin of Abba, Nema, Tavuna, and parts of it, of the part that's hanging out of those structures. All right. Let's see here.
Okay, that's that.
All right, this is a pretty cool thing. All right, all right. The question is, why does God allow Og to get on the ark? All right. Why did He create evil? Why does it still exist and everything? The basic is, if something doesn't fall, something cannot be picked up.
You always gotta have contrast.
Yeah.
You don't know good unless you have evil.
Yeah, and so it said God was creating and destroying worlds, creating and destroying worlds. He wasn't really destroying. He was creating and iterating until he could conceal himself far enough that it could exist. But in doing that, everything else exists too. And he had to do it through the power of Guvarot. So Guvarot was very, very, very strong. So that's why Moses throws it back on him and says, "Dude, you did this."
Yeah, he's right.
Because Moses understood how you use the process of creation to create. And we can't kill it all, because if we kill it all, That's like if we woke up tomorrow and says, let's kill every woman in America. Well, there would be no more Americans. You see what I'm saying? You can't do that. Now, but once it flips and goes the other way, that's what. Then you put it on the inside. What goes out on the inside, and then it's going to grow from the inside out instead of the outside in, because it's basically growing from the outside in right now.
Right.
All right.
It's kind of like, was it Einstein? He had to figure in, he couldn't make the theory of relativity work until he figured in an element of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything worked out.
As soon as you put tohu in there, it works. Yeah.
Exactly.
Again, we see the word days in the 11 days, the 11 Sefirot. But if you don't know, you got to count the 4, the 2 halves. Then you'll never make it, because you'll say, well, there's 10 Sefirot. Well, there is, but we're not even counting Keter. We're just talking aspects of the 2 halves of those. But so what's left basically is the back on the back side we have Ammon, Edom, and whatever the other one is. I can't think of it. Those are the 3.
Moabites, isn't it?
Maybe it's the Moabites. Well, I said Moab, Edom. It's probably in our Parsha. I know it is. I just can't remember what it is. Here it is. All right. This is out of Deuteronomy 2:9. The book of Genesis, God promises to Abraham the land of Canaan, which comprised the territory of 10 nations. Why 10? Because obviously 10 backside nations. The Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Kadmonites. I wonder where the Kadmonites came from. Maybe Adam Kadmon. The Hittites, the Perizzites, and the Rephaim. The Amorites, Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. The first 3 were synonymous with the Ammonites, the Moabites, and the Edomites. That's who the 3 were. Okay? In the time of Moses, however, when God lists the people of the land of Canaan he will give to the Jewish people, he only lists the 7. But the 10 are mentioned at Abraham. Thus, our sages note, God only gave the territory of the latter 7 to the Jewish people in the time of Moses, and will inherit the land of the other 3 nations when Messiah comes. Then the land will go to the Euphrates River. Okay? The Jewish people are commanded to entirely wipe out these 7 nations. Of the cities of these people whom God will give to you inherit the land, you shall leave no soul alive. Rather, you must wipe them out. The Hittite, the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite, as God commanded you. In Parsha Devarim, Moses reviews the journey in which he led the people on their way, and God said, and they were told by God not to wage war against the descendants of Esau, who inhabited Mount Seir, not to wage war against Moab or Ammon. In contrast, they were commanded to fight and conquer the 2 Amorite kings, Sihon and Og. Let's see. Seir is Keter. Okay? Edom is the Keter. Moab is Hokmah, and Ammon is Bina. So that rounds out those. All right, and we'll close with this. The Tzimtzum word, that is Tzimtzumites, personified the evil portion of the Hokmah of Tohu that was removed. The mixed multitude is spiritually derived from them. Of course it is. See? And these are evil thoughts or evil fancies the reason all of this stuff is so big with Og and these giants, it is because it is the ego of the Guvarot that increases. And what happens? Og, this is why you remove the leaven at Passover. Nothing increases without Guvarot. Right? So that's why the sages says you are the leaven in the dough. What they're saying is you are the Og, you are the heavy Guvarot that has a big ego, not for the sake of heaven. It's all about you. It's all, all these different things. You would be considered a giant in the land, even though you may be 5'10". You see what I'm saying? Because what it's measuring is your spirituality, not your stature.
That's them little guys, them big egos.
Yeah, little guys, big. This is the small. This is the small man syndrome at work. So I do have for those of you that like charts, I do have Rabbi Bax wrote a whole thing on this at one time, and there is a chart here of the 7 lower Sphirot as it deals with these places. So anyway, keep that in a library.
Did you guys get the email about this? For Sukkot?
Yes, I think we've talked to those
For
people.
Sukkot? For the 7 species?
No, I ain't seen it.
I thought I sent you all the email.
So,
You want me to call?
Anyway, the Torah is amazing. The sages are amazing, and it's just unbelievable what you can dig out of a Parsha, and then you go in, and all the stuff we started studying from the very beginning, we can go back and connect the entire thing, and we see what's going on from all the way from Noah, all the way through Moses.
You see the beginning at the end.
And we see the beginning at the end. It's absolutely amazing.
I'm
So, see y'all next week, guys, on Wednesday night.